Your story will get lost in the noise, and readers won't want to finish your book if your magic system isn't strong. But you can easily create a stronger magic system for your fantasy novels with a few key pieces I'm going to share with you here today. You want to put readers so in awe of your story and its incredible magic that they can't stop raving about it. And what better marketing is there than that? Better yet, you want readers to catch themselves going about their day and thinking or nearly speaking in the terms of your magic system because it's become so second nature to them. So immersed as they were, it's hard for them to extract themselves from the world of your story. It was that believable while they were living in it. What a powerful impact you can have. But crafting a strong magic system isn't only coming up with cool powers, it's fulfilling the right expectations, adding purpose to your story, and giving your readers an immersive experience. Anything less is a poorly crafted magic system and one that can ruin a perfectly good story. Why? When we look at the insights from brain science that show the effects of stories on readers and what readers are looking for from stories, it's these three major themes that emerge. I'll explain each and I'll show you what it takes to avoid letting your magic system development bring down your whole story. What is a strong magic system? First, let's make sure we're on the same page. A magic system is simply the set of rules, limitations, and abilities that define the supernatural forces in your fantasy world. These elements are the very essence of the fantasy genre. And if done right, they can help transform your novel into something unforgettable. But here's the key. A strong magic system isn't just a collection of magical rules. A strong magic system is one that feels compelling, consistent, and integral to both the story arc and the world. Ultimately, meaning by your final manuscript draft, your magic system should be informed by the needs of your story and not the other way around. Otherwise, you disregard the reader experience, the very thing you want your story to satisfy if you want to publish a marketable book. So, before you put all your time and effort into making the most complex and unique magic system possible, know that in order to make it truly strong, a magic system of any type, no matter how much it even shows up in your novel, needs to fulfill reader expectations within your world building. Shape plot and character arcs with purpose so readers subconsciously gain value from your story, and immerse readers for an experience they crave. Why do you need a strong magic system? Because readers expect it. A compelling, consistent, well integrated magic system is something readers expect. When your magic system is inconsistent or confusing, readers feel disconnected. Brain science shows that readers want to predict possibilities for where a story might go. When too much about your magic is hidden or unclear, your readers are stuck asking basic questions just to understand what's happening, rather than diving into deeper, more engaging questions that keep them hooked. Magic systems are a big world building pitfall for meeting these reader expectations because they easily slide into inconsistency or get a bit too hand wavy without enough grounding for readers to be able to jump from with their projections. And I just want to make a side note here that obviously reader projections do not have to be correct for readers to enjoy your story. In fact, readers are usually delighted to be proven wrong, at least as long as their hindsight shows how the surprise direction was clearly set up all along. As a reader, you've probably encountered the opposite situation, where the magic system suddenly gets tossed aside during the climax, even though the protagonist shouldn't be able to defeat the enemy based on the established rules. She manages to win simply because she needs to, wants to, or feels it strongly enough. She taps into a hidden reserve of power and wields this unexplained super magic in that crucial moment. This kind of victory feels empty and unearned for the reader. It doesn't resonate or satisfy. Magic systems provide a lot of opportunity to play with and fulfill reader expectations. First, by establishing a firm foundation for how magic works. You give readers enough understanding to think deeply about its possibilities. Then you can delightfully surprise them by using magic in creative ways within those set boundaries. This applies even to softer or less central magic systems because no matter the type of genre or magic, consistency and consequences are key to keeping readers invested. So, reason number 1A, it's a genre expectation. Speaking of genre, a strong magic system is essential in a fantasy novel because it's a core expectation of the genre. Magic, or the supernatural, is one of the defining elements that separates fantasy from other genres. Readers come to fantasy looking for it. Of course, a magic system can take many forms. It might involve magical creatures, enchanted objects, spells activated through words or ingredients, godlike powers, or inborn abilities. It could even be so rare that it barely shows up in your story at all. What's important is that your magic system is consistent and follows its own internal logic. But that doesn't mean it can't have additional layers or opportunities for deeper understanding that are gradually revealed. This can allow for a sense of the mystical while maintaining world building continuity. When magic is deeply integrated into your world, it feels immersive, and your readers will have an easier time finding it believable in the context of the story. Whether your system is highly structured, like the Wheel of Time's one power, or more mystical, like the Lord of the Rings, it needs to be consistent and natural within the world you've built. No matter where it falls on the spectrum, a well-crafted magic system adds depth to your world and story. Whether it's grand or subtle, it must fit seamlessly into the world's fabric. That takes some intentional crafting. Think of how magic is part of everyday life in Harry Potter, or how bending shapes culture in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Your magic system should influence politics, society, and daily life. Whatever form your magic takes, these supernatural elements are what give your novel its distinctive fantasy feel. And regardless of how prominent or subtle, they all need to function consistently and serve a meaningful role in the story because readers subconsciously want to learn from or gain value from it. That brings me to the second theme of what readers are looking for. It's deeper purpose in the story, subconsciously at least. In my work with authors, we call this element enlightenment. In other words, your magic system, whatever form it takes, needs to enhance the meaning of your story and contribute to what readers subconsciously learn from it. When magic systems are thrown together without being integrated with the character's arc of transformation, this major element of the novel isn't serving the story as a connected whole and weakens all of it. Instead, the magic system should be used to provide further obstacle and challenge for your character's particular brand of struggle. By doing this, your magic system adds more weight to the story arc, providing obstacles and challenges that heighten the tension and drive the reader forward. A strong magic system doesn't just exist in the background. It drives the plot and character arcs. Think of Mistborn, for example. Allomancy's rules create endless plot opportunities for character conflicts. The system's limitations increase tension, especially in battles where characters must think strategically and use only the metals they have on hand. Each metal has a specific power, and using magic comes at a cost. It burns the metal. When Vin runs out of metals during a fight, she has to find a creative solution, keeping readers on edge. When you have rules and limits, your characters will struggle against those limits, creating tension that keeps readers turning the pages. And that tension is key for bringing about character transformations. Magic doesn't just serve the plot. Magic is a powerful enhancer for character development. How your characters interact with magic reveals their true selves and often forces them to face that truth. Take Jed from the Wizard of Earthsea. His reckless use of magic summons a shadow creature that represents his inner turmoil. And his journey to master his powers reflects his growth as a person. Jed's early arrogance leads to a costly mistake. His journey to master his powers parallels his growth as a person. The magic system here isn't just a set of rules, it's a reflection of deeper themes like responsibility and self-acceptance. Magic systems that challenge characters force them to make difficult choices. Does the magic come with a price? Are there consequences for using it? This struggle creates growth and depth for your characters. Whether your characters are practitioners or outsiders to the magic, a strong system helps to push them along their paths of transformation through those choices they make and the consequences they reap. Magic is most compelling when it reveals and challenges your characters' true selves. Okay, let's get to that last key reason you need a strong magic system for your novel. Because readers want an immersive experience. This is the escape function. One of the biggest conscious reasons readers turn to fantasy is for that immersive escape it offers. But this escape is more than just a portal to new worlds. It's also an emotional and experiential journey. To give readers that rich, immersive experience, your magic system must be well developed and woven naturally into the perspective of your point of view characters. Immersion comes from the characters' experiences. Readers feel connected to your story when they understand what matters to the character. If the character cares about something, whether it's a magical artifact, a spell, or a power, then the reader will care too. This is why your magic system will be most effective when filtered through the unique perspective of your point of view character at any given time. So if your POV character is a practitioner of magic, they'll likely understand its complexities and nuances. Readers should then experience magic through their expertise. But this requires you to have a deep understanding of how your magic system works, even beyond what's directly on the page. The more you know about your system, the more naturally you can present it through your character's actions and thoughts. On the other hand, if your POV character is an outsider to the magic, they may only glimpse its effects or react to it emotionally without fully understanding the mechanics. For the readers, the magic will feel more mysterious, but it still needs to follow the rules you've established in your world. Even if your character doesn't know how the magic system works, you must know to maintain internal consistency and keep the magic believable. In both cases, whether your character is deeply knowledgeable about magic or in awe of it from the outside, the key to immersion is that your magic system feels seamless and purposeful. It should contribute to your story's themes, character arcs, and world building in a way that both satisfies and enchants your readers. Promises you set up about how magic works, what it can do, and what it costs must be fulfilled. To give readers that immersive experience they crave, you need to craft your magic system in enough detail that it feels real and grounded in your world. When you understand how magic ties into the story's themes and how it impacts your characters, you can weave it into your characters' perspectives and the whole fantasy world in a way that feels organic. This is what creates that vicarious, immersive experience that draws readers in and keeps them engaged. Here's the good news. You don't have to start from scratch to craft a strong magic system. In fact, I'm going to dive into the 4 types of magic systems every fantasy author should know and how you can use them to help build your compelling, immersive world that keeps readers hooked. Now, stop wasting time trying to figure out your magic system from scratch. You can have a more immersive magical world for a marketable book if you use just 2 of the 4 core types every magic system in fantasy falls into. When it comes to writing a magic system, you have a lot of freedom, but you also have a lot of responsibility to make it consistent, meaningful, and captivating. A strong magic system doesn't just exist in the background. It helps drive your story along its thematic arc, it enhances character development, and it immerses readers in your world. This magic system lives on a spectrum, or rather a quadrant. So one of the best ways to craft a magic system that supports your story is by plotting it on a quadrant to give you a solid template to work with. But these 4 categories, soft, hard, low, and high, are not rigid boxes. Those quadrants have a range, like a spectrum, from soft to hard magic and low to high magic. Your magic system will fall somewhere between them with different degrees of each. Understanding these will help you build a balanced, compelling magic system that captivates readers with both wonder and the right expectations. And to be sure your whole story is strong and meeting reader expectations, making sure every element, including your magic system, contributes to a story that engages readers and stands out in the market, I have a free resource that can help. Turn Your Story Idea into a Marketable Book walks you through the same steps I use with my author clients, giving you a roadmap to develop your novel into something readers won't want to put down. You can grab it in the description below. Now, let's build on that knowledge and explore how plotting your magic system on this chart will give you a flexible framework that will save you time in world building and get your story captivating readers more effectively. The y-axis goes from low to high magic systems. This spectrum is like a magical thermostat, or I've heard it described as a volume setting. When you crank up the magic in scope and power, the higher it sits on this axis. When you turn it down and limit the scope and its power isn't so grand, or it's at least rarer, the lower it sits on the axis. On the x-axis, the horizontal axis, magic systems range from soft to hard. This spectrum is rather like a blur setting in a photo editor. The blurrier the magic system is for readers to grasp, the softer it is. The sharper the magic system's clarity, the harder the system. So if a magic system has fewer definitions and rules, it will sit farther left on the axis. The more rules and definitions where everything about it is explained like a science, the farther right it sits on this axis. Let me further define each of these 4 types of magic systems so you can determine where your story's magic system best fits. Starting at the top of the chart, the first core magic system type is a high magic system. When we talk about high magic, we're talking about a world where magic is widespread and influences nearly every aspect of life. Think of Harry Potter or Avatar: The Last Airbender, where magic is more than a part of the plot. It's woven into society, politics, and everyday activities. High magic often feels grand, pervasive, and is an integral part of the world's functioning. In high magic worlds, magic is typically accessible to many people, or certain groups such as wizards and sorcerers, and often has clearly defined rules or systems. but we'll talk about that more in a bit. On the other end is low magic systems. These are the opposite of high magic. Magic exists, but it's rarer, subtler, and often not fully understood by most people in the world. There's often still a larger emphasis on mundane solutions to problems. In stories like Game of Thrones, magic lurks almost unseen, often adding mystery or an edge of danger. In the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, magic exists but is tightly controlled by a few powerful individuals, like the Magus Baez. Magic is dangerous, often destructive, and difficult to master. In the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, access to magic is highly restricted to those who can tolerate jade, and even then comes with a lot of risk. Low magic systems can create a more grounded atmosphere because they're less about grand displays and more about the unknown or the mystical. And on the right of the other axis is hard magic systems. This is where rules reign supreme. Hard magic systems have clearly defined mechanics, limitations, and consequences. In Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives, or let's face it, really anything by Sanderson, the magic system is detailed and intricate. Each radiant order has unique abilities tied to specific surges. Because the rules are so clear, this kind of system can create tons of tension by pushing characters up against those limits. Hard magic is great when you want magic to feel like a science, a part of the plot that readers can follow and even predict. It allows for strategic thinking in battles, resource management, and a lot of creative problem solving. Readers love hard magic when they can understand the system well enough to anticipate what might happen next, making it satisfying when you set up and fulfill those expectations. It's often a reader expectation that high magic systems, where magic is everywhere, should also be a harder magic system. With magic being such a prominent aspect of the novel, readers naturally want to know its rules, how it works, who can use it, and what limitations it has. Without this structure, high magic can become chaotic or feel like a cheap way to solve problems. That's why you'll often find high magic paired with clear, defined systems, like chromaturgy in Brent Week's Lightbringer series, where individuals known as drafters can convert light into physical matter called luxin, with each color of light granting different abilities and properties. And it has limitations based on the light the drafter can see. Or there are those like Harry Potter that seem fairly hard with specific spells, yet much of the workings and one-off feats of magic go mostly unexplained. It might sit near the middle of the soft to hard axis. So that leaves soft magic systems. These are more fluid, with fewer rules and often a sense of mystery or wonder. The Lord of the Rings is one example of soft magic. Gandalf's abilities are powerful, but their exact limits are rarely defined. Magic in these systems feels mystical and sometimes even random, which can keep readers on their toes. Soft magic works best when you're using it to create atmosphere and awe, rather than to solve specific plot problems. Because there aren't strict rules, it's easier to avoid plot holes. But you also have to be careful not to use magic as a deus ex machina or introduce unintended plot holes in which readers would wonder why magic couldn't simply be used. Rather, soft magic is about creating a feeling of wonder, while still maintaining a sense of consistency with your world's deeper themes. Low magic stories tend to have softer magic systems, which gives the story a sense of wonder without having to spell out all the details. We see this in T.J. Klune's House in the Cerulean Sea, with magical beings of inexplicable origin and abilities that are often unknown even to them. And that's kind of the point in this story that explores the other among further themes that take a higher priority than the specifics of the magic. Readers expect the mystery here, and that's okay. In fact, it's a great tool to create a more immersive world by leaving certain aspects of magic open to interpretation, which helps maintain an air of unpredictability, as long as it's still serving the story, that is. And in Robin Hobb's Farseer trilogy, magic is relatively rare and subtle, mainly appearing through two types, the wit and the skill. Hobb doesn't focus on the mechanics or hard rules of these abilities, yet don't mistake that to mean her system is simple. Instead, she explores the personal and cultural impact of magic on her characters, which creates a low, soft magic system that emphasizes the emotional and psychological consequences rather than a strictly defined structure. Not to mention the psychological consequences on her readers. I will never not sob for Night Eyes. However, your story does not need to follow the typical combinations. In other words, you can absolutely mix a low magical volume with a hard system, or a high magical volume with a soft system. For example, I might argue that The Chronicles of Narnia is a high magic series with a softer system. In Narnia, magic often operates on a grand, cosmic scale, tied to the foundational laws of the world, such as the deep magic and the deeper magic that govern life and death. These forces are portrayed as part of the fabric of the universe rather than as something characters can systematically learn or use. Magic is more of a divine or natural force rather than a system of spells or powers that can be studied or controlled. Or consider the Earthsea cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. Magic is deeply woven into the world with wizards, spells, and a structured system of learning at the School of Roke, which makes it consistent with high magic systems. But while this magic follows some rules, primarily the use of true names to control things, its full scope and limitations are often more soft, more mysterious. Much of it operates based on intuition, balance, and understanding of the world's natural order rather than strict mechanics. It feels vast and powerful, while maintaining a sense of mysticism. But in the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, magic is tightly regulated and comes with clearly defined rules and risks, such as the laws of magic enforced by the White Council. It's consistent with a low magic system. However, the rules are pretty well defined. Magic is potent, but limited, and its use is often taxing on the caster, with hard restrictions governing its scope and use. This combination is also true of the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. The Grisha powers are divided into strict categories and require rigorous training. While some powers might appear supernatural, they're treated more like a science with set rules. Magic isn't omnipresent, but highly specialized, creating a low magic, structured feel that aligns with the political and social systems of Ravka. So, where does your magic system fall in this quadrant? Is it more soft or hard, low or high? Finding the right degrees of each will help you create a magic system that enhances your story and satisfies your reader's need for both awe and clarity. Whether you're building a world where magic is well known and everywhere, or one where it's a rare and mysterious force, understanding the type of magic system you're working with is key to crafting a strong story in which each element plays a cohesive part in the whole. Once you have this high-level framework, then you need to map out the specifics to make sure your magic system keeps readers invested. The best way to craft your strong, epic magic system is what I'm talking about now. Nothing quite loses readers like a high magic system that breaks their immersion. But readers don't actually care about your magic system. They care about a great story. To keep readers invested so they get to the end of your book, avoid these common high magic mistakes. When I say high magic, I mean a world where magic is widespread, commonly known, and deeply embedded in society. It's not just a tool or a fringe ability, but fundamental to how this world operates. It includes worlds populated with all manner of magical creatures or species too, but having lots of magic in your novel also creates lots of ways to get it wrong and waste your time. I've seen this repeatedly over more than a decade of editing and coaching authors. Unfortunately, these mistakes never go unnoticed by readers because they directly impact their ability to immerse themselves in your story. That's just it. Readers only really care about a great story. Then they start nerding out about the mind-blowing magic system you immerse them in. And it'd better be a solid one to withstand that scrutiny and help you market your book. So, if you want grand scale magic operating at a level of awesome, you need to make it work hard for your story, not the other way around. But that's easier said than done. The good news is that we can tackle these common high magic mistakes through my 3 keys to reader enchantment for solutions that work not only for us as writers, but also on our readers. You can learn more about these keys and how to apply them to every stage of your writing process at the link in the description. So let's use the 3 keys on the first mistake I see authors make. Mistake number 1, world building without a story arc focus. This is really an issue of too much magic that may not be important. You've answered dozens of world building prompts to establish how your magic system works in culture, geography, and economics, yet it's still rather tangential to your plot or character goals. Endless world building question lists about your magic system won't make your novel marketable. You can spend hours mapping out how magic affects politics, trade, and religion, only to realize most of it doesn't really serve your story's arc. Instead of pulling readers in, this kind of overwhelming world building can lead to info dumps, wasted time, and a book that never quite comes together. So why is this bad? Well, either you never really finish writing your story, or if you do, readers can't form clear expectations about your story when they're overloaded with details. Details you might have got a bit lost in yourself. It all makes it hard for readers to engage or connect when they can't form expectations about what's important or where the story is going. They get stuck sorting through information instead of diving into deeper, more intriguing questions about characters, conflicts, and stakes. So, here's what to do instead. Build your magic system and world by starting from your character's arc of transformation to keep it meaningfully focused. Ask yourself how magic enhances, showcases, or even metaphorically represents your protagonist's internal struggle. Tie the magic system, the way it works, what it affects in the world, and how it shapes life, to clear internal conflicts, external character goals, and as a motivator in the plot. This will help you keep the details you do need to go on a world building binge to figure out important and purposeful for your actual story. Mistake number 2, readers can't intuitively grasp your magic's limits. Maybe you skipped the overwhelming world building lists and dove right into writing your high magic story. Good on you, seriously. But you're not off the hook yet. You've likely incorporated magic from inspiration, and it may even significantly impact your plot and characters already. Magical species and abilities galore. However, because you haven't yet done all the necessary world building work, readers don't clearly grasp your magic's limits or capabilities. They might feel overwhelmed by overly complex, inconsistent rules, or frustrated by a system that feels completely arbitrary and not like a system at all. Obviously, this hurts your story due to reader expectations and experience. Readers lose immersion when they're uncertain about what's possible. If anything can happen anytime, or if nothing's clearly defined, they can't form the right kind of expectations about upcoming events. They either mentally check out from confusion or lose interest because tension evaporates if everything feels possible. Without defined limits, creative solutions aren't necessary. Here's what to do instead. Clearly establish fundamental rules and limitations of your magic, whether hard or soft, through concrete storytelling moments, not lengthy exposition. Readers should intuitively grasp what's possible and impossible before critical scenes. Allow rules to emerge naturally during conflicts, intrigue, or tension, helping readers to form expectations organically. Mistake number 3. Magic solves problems too episodically and repetitively. The obstacles your characters face might feel superficial, and the use of magic to resolve them repetitive. I know that, like the many authors I've worked with, you don't mean to commit this faux pas, and you already know it can make you roll your eyes as a reader, but it sneaks in on the best of us when writing because it's hard to break patterns. Yeah, it's just brain science. We don't want things to get too hard for ourselves. Even if each of your magical conflicts seems increasingly difficult, when you really examine your scenes, you might notice that your magic solves each problem in a predictable, formulaic way. Some authors I've coached admit avoiding complexity because they fear they won't know how to write themselves out of it. So problems arise, magic blasts through, and characters carry on episodically without building layered obstacles and tension that would force new and creative ways for their characters to overcome them. This kills reader engagement when magic solves problems too by rote. Readers lose interest. It becomes static and predictable. Readers get bored with it because there's no real ingenuity or character growth. Rather than highlighting deeper themes or driving significant transformation, magic becomes a narrative crutch. Readers subconsciously want to learn from your novel. When magic bypasses the deeper struggle, there's no believable transformation or emotional payoff for readers to experience that lasting impact from. So, what can you do instead? Make sure your magic creates meaningful complications and dilemmas tied directly to your story's themes. The thing you're really trying to say through your book if you get really honest about it. How? In my book coaching program, Enchant Your Readers, we do this through the character arcs specifically. Then, their magic system's impact on the internal arc shows up on the page through the way it personally affects their characters. Characters should grapple emotionally, ethically, or psychologically with the limitations and consequences of their magic. Magic should escalate the stakes or present harder, deeper choices, not just become a habitual solution to keep moving through your draft. Mistake number 4. Magic described without character perspective lens. This is the one where all the workings of your high magic system go a little too textbook, right? But it's more than that. This problem happens when you are trying to be transparent with readers and give them the context they'll need to fully appreciate what's coming in your story. But in doing so, authors often neglect the character perspective lens. Sure, it's there, but then they need to fill in some gaps between what the character knows and what the reader knows through explanation. But even when you add tidbits of how the magic works when it applies and seems relevant, you're likely switching out of the character perspective lens in your narration. It becomes more omniscient or distant for a passage, and that's likely not what you've chosen for your narrative distance. Yet, you break out of it temporarily in order to offer the needed context. But this kind of exposition doesn't create connection. Readers won't understand how or why your character cares about this piece of information, or it may not even be a piece of information your point of view character would care about or think to comment on. And readers care when they know how your character cares. The emotional and personal impacts come through your character's perspectives. The magic workings may seem cool, but without emotional resonance, readers won't care deeply. This prevents immersion for the best reader experience. Readers need to emotionally connect to your story by understanding the magic through your character's perspective lens. Everything from how they view the world based on lived experience to the unique expertise or things they're specifically interested in and would notice. If the magic information tidbit doesn't personally matter to your protagonist, emotionally, culturally, or ethically, it won't personally matter to readers either. It's just information without a reason to care. And so that magical story element also loses its meaningful connection in the story. So here's what you do. Always filter your descriptions and demonstrations of magic through your character's unique perspective, emotions, biases, expertise, and cultural understandings. So if you need readers to understand some fact about your magic, make sure it's something your character would notice or care about in that moment by getting creative, especially if it's not something they would normally notice or care about. Let readers feel what your character feels about the magic: excitement, fear, wonder, or frustration. This deeper emotional connection amplifies reader immersion and makes your magic feel authentic and personal. Mistake number 5, focusing on originality rather than impact. Authors try to invent original magic that ultimately gets overly complex and just unnecessary. In the drive to be unique, authors have to do these creative acrobatics to try to overcome the anxiety of influence. But the truth is that even seemingly new ideas are just novel combinations of existing elements. So I don't know if that helps, but I hope it relieves you from feeling like you have to keep striving toward an impossible level of originality. High magic writers are especially prone to this thinking. But what really matters is whether your magic system serves your story instead of trying to make it original more for its own sake. In fact, if you keep focused on your story's arc and what's going to best enhance or poke at your character's pain points to drive them to the change they need, I can almost guarantee that your magic system, no matter how basic it might start out feeling, is going to naturally become more original. Not for its own sake, but rather because that's what your story uniquely needs. You have to be careful with how unfamiliar your high magic system feels. As brain science has shown, readers need some familiarity. They need that grounding to jump from into more unfamiliar things with you. Too much newness at once just becomes noise without meaning. So balance that experience for your readers. Originality without clarity or deeper purpose in your story leaves readers detached or overwhelmed. How can you do that? Prioritize how your magic system heightens the emotional and thematic impacts of your novel, rather than worrying so much about whether your magic system feels too much like others out there. Of course, that doesn't give anyone permission to plagiarize. I simply mean that when a system based on the elements, for example, seems to work best for your story, but you keep thinking of the other 1,000 out there that already do that, it's still okay. If it supports your good story, readers will appreciate that more. Some novelty is fun, but depth matters more than uniqueness. When you start building it or refining it from that perspective, I'm sure you'll find ways to add some of the novel to your otherwise fairly familiar system. But don't go all in on crafting a mistake-proof high magic system before you first consider whether it might be better for your story to craft a different type of magic system that has been highly marketable for its rare, secretive magic that creates tantalizing mystery. The best fantasy books transport readers easily into the magic, and that's exactly how you're going to get readers sucked into your book, even with a low magic system. But if your magic is subtle, rare, or almost mythical, you need to make sure you understand exactly how to use this kind of magic system effectively. So how do you do that? What's the best way to pull readers into your subtle magical world? Well, that's what I'm going to share with you right now by applying my 3 keys to enchant your readers to your low magic system story. First, let's quickly clarify what I mean by a low magic system. This type of magic is subtle, rare, and often mysterious. In your story's world, magic might exist on society's fringes, hidden away, secretive, considered dangerous, or even dismissed entirely as superstition or myth. Maybe magic users hide underground, like in Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. Perhaps society tries to rationalize magic through science, never quite grasping its deeper truth, similar to the world outside of the remote island of Caicon in Fondalee's Jade City. Or maybe your magic is a small remnant from what could have been a high magic world, a faded echo of ancient, once powerful enchantments, as we see in Robin Hobb's Farseer trilogy. But just because your story's world may mostly dismiss it, doesn't mean you can. The world building was weak isn't something you want to read in your reviews. You still need to put in the work to make it a solid system. Putting off shoring up your magic system details doesn't mean you automatically have a low magic system and can call it good. I see you, pantsers. But planners aren't off the hook either. A low magic system needs just as much, if not more, attention than a high magic system. Case in point might kind of be Narnia's high magic. Whether your magic is harder or softer. Ultimately, to truly immerse readers in your subtler or more hidden magic, you're going to need some intricate world building that weaves the magic into the story and story's purpose quite firmly, despite the edge of mystery around it. So I'm going to guide you through exactly how to do this by applying my 3 keys to enchant your readers: expectations, enlightenment, and experience. By using these keys specifically to strengthen your low magic system, you'll pull readers deeper into your story world and keep them enchanted page after page. The first key, the key of expectations, is all about intentionally setting promises in your story that align with readers' subconscious desires and expectations for your genre. This means that when a reader is browsing the fantasy section, they're gonna expect something that, well, feels like fantasy, or promises the supernatural in those first few lines they skim. This is crucial to know for your low magic system story especially. Even though your magic might be subtle or scarce, your readers still need to know it's there, and more importantly, they need to know it has a purpose beyond just meeting genre conventions. This expectations key also relates to the structure of your story and hitting certain beats readers expect. For your magic system, this means making sure your readers can intuitively grasp its limits too, even on its own. Low magic is usually a strong immediate hook. Low magic naturally signals intrigue, subtlety, secrecy, and suspense. And that's perfect for compelling storytelling. So learn how to use it intentionally to maximize that effect. How can you do that? Here are a couple specific strategies to set reader expectations clearly and effectively. First, you need to signal the scarcity, rarity, or misunderstood nature of magic early on in your story, and do this firmly through your point of view character's perspective. Readers should immediately sense how magic impacts that character's world. Is your protagonist skeptical of magic's existence, frightened by whispered myths, or deeply curious about unexplained events? Show readers these emotions up front, and you set the right expectations about how magic will influence your narrative. This subtle signaling works wonders because it primes readers subconsciously to anticipate magic without ever fully revealing it until the perfect narrative moment. One of the authors in my Enchant Your Readers program was having a hard time setting the fantasy genre promise for readers with her low magic system. It's revealed slowly in her story, so we adjusted her approach. From some of the very first lines, we built in clues for the genre through these strange, inexplicable things happening. Think of it as similar to how J.K. Rowling sets up hints of magic in Harry Potter well before the iconic "You're a wizard" line. This way, we could still make sure she set up the right reader expectation, even though the full reveal of what was behind the supernatural events didn't occur until later. By doing this, she clearly and intentionally set reader expectations. Readers sensed something supernatural brewing beneath the surface, even though they didn't yet know exactly what it was. As a byproduct, this created anticipation and kept readers hooked to find out what was causing these strange events. Here's something practical you can do to set the low magic promise in your own story. Craft one subtle promise of the mysterious right in your story's opening. You could work in a societal myth about a hidden magical power, or have your in-the-know protagonist scoff at those who only think it's a myth. You could share a whispered legend from fearful townsfolk, or show your protagonist suspiciously reacting to something they can't quite explain. Do this, and readers will instantly feel compelled to uncover the magical truth right alongside your characters. The key of enlightenment addresses how readers subconsciously want to learn something deeper from your story's thematic truths, gaining insight about this truth through your character's arc of change. This is super important because this arc for your character is what you need to craft any magical system you incorporate into your novel to serve. Think about it like this. Your low magic system should directly, or perhaps metaphorically, challenge, support, enhance, or highlight this deeper thing you're really trying to say through your novel. That means magic isn't just there for aesthetic appeal or to fulfill genre expectations. It exists to shape your protagonist's journey toward greater enlightenment. What might this look like practically in your story? Perhaps your protagonist's enlightenment comes through discovering or mastering this subtle or rare magic. Perhaps they're rebelling against oppressive powers who carefully control and ration magic as a scarce resource or even currency. Maybe they find themselves dabbling dangerously with unpredictable magical arts for noble reasons that quickly turn corrupt. Or it could be deeply nostalgic as they grapple with what it truly means to be the last of a magical kind. In low magic systems specifically, powerful themes naturally emerge around hidden knowledge, prejudice, fear of the unknown, control, class divides, lost wisdom, and forgotten power. You can deliberately leverage societal misunderstandings or scholarly misconceptions about magic to illuminate thematic truths. What's lost? What's misunderstood or corrupted? Most importantly, your characters' experiences with magic should always heighten their own journey toward these truths they need to learn, sometimes pushing them forward, other times holding them back, depending on their decisions. Let me illustrate this with an example from an author I coached. In her fantasy novel, magic is treated as a tightly controlled currency. Her protagonist is desperate. She doesn't have enough magic currency to heal her mother or pay crushing taxes that would save her family from ruin. When circumstances practically force her into a violent magical competition offering immense magical wealth, she basically has no choice but to enter, despite deeply abhorring violence of any kind. Through her arc of change, the protagonist needs to learn when fighting for something is necessary rather than always cowering or avoiding conflict. But there's a catch. The competition's winner will receive a dangerously powerful object, one that could easily become a catastrophic weapon. By intentionally aligning the magic system's nature directly to the protagonist's arc of change, the author created juicy narrative tension. It forces the protagonist and readers to wrestle deeply with fears, beliefs, and ultimately recognize the difference between what she thought she wanted versus what she truly needed. Here's exactly how you can use this insight practically for your own low magic system. First, clearly identify the core thematic truth your protagonist needs to learn. Pinpoint precisely what mistaken belief they currently hold and note their biggest fears surrounding it. Next, and this is crucial, craft or adjust your low magic system to specifically and probably rather painfully force your protagonist to grapple directly with these fears and the truth. Allow the nature of your magic and the way it affects your story's world to actively challenge your protagonist's core misconceptions, nudging or even shoving them toward necessary growth and insight. Do this and you'll deepen your thematic resonance so your story has a lasting impact on readers. The key of experience is all about portaling readers into a deeply immersive world and powerful emotional journey. And here's the key insight you need when applying this to your low magic system specifically. Your magic comes alive through your character's lens. Your readers experience magic most powerfully, not because you explain it, but because your characters show it to them vividly and emotionally in the actual events and emotional beats of the story. Low magic enhances emotional intensity precisely because it's scarce, risky, misunderstood, or hidden. Its subtle or charged nature means each appearance can be carefully crafted to intensify reader experience, pulling readers deeper into the emotional and thematic heart of your story. The real power here is in using these instances of magic in your story to heighten the emotional stakes, tying each directly to your character's internal struggles, transformations, and relationships. Here's how you can put this into practice on a scene level. First, tie your low magic directly to your protagonist's personal journey and deepest emotional struggles. Leverage magic's scarcity or secret nature to heighten the emotional payoff. In each instance, something should change, internally or externally for your character, raising stakes, creating tension, or prompting breakthroughs. Let me follow my own advice and show you what I mean through an example. One author in Enchant Your Readers was writing a protagonist who loses control whenever he uses his incredibly rare abilities. He fears them and doesn't understand them. So he fights hard to suppress his powers and maintain absolute control by tightly controlling every other aspect of his life too. Yet it wasn't until one fateful coaching session with this author that we made a breakthrough about the truth this character needed to learn, that we could put all that tension to use in a truly transformative experience on the page. And then that climax, when the protagonist is finally able to let go of that control to suppress his abilities, he actually gains control in another way by being aware of his power and how he's using it. This conscious use of suppressed magic at a critical emotional climax, after a long buildup of internal conflict, delivered intense catharsis and an unforgettable immersive reader experience. Now, here's your actionable tip to create this same kind of unforgettable emotional experience. Identify one emotionally charged scene where your subtle fringe magic can get deeply personal for your protagonist, dramatically shifting their internal or external stakes. Intentionally emphasize the emotional, physical, or relational consequences. Let your magic's mystery or risk intensify these stakes, making readers vividly feel the transformative impact. For additional clarity and some great examples of these keys in action, look at these published novels. In Jade City by Fonda Lee, scarce magic is a carefully controlled resource intricately tied to family, power, and duty, deepening emotional stakes. The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher hides magic beneath modern society's surface, amplifying emotional tension through secrecy and societal blindness. And in Robin Hobb's Farseer trilogy, remnants of ancient magic amplify intense emotions around loss, stigma, prejudice, and eventual rediscovery, heightening reader immersion and emotional resonance. Using these 3 keys to reader enchantment ensures your low magic system deeply hooks readers and provides payoff that leaves them in awe. But that's only half of the magic system creation process. Don't ruin all this hard work with any of the huge magic system fails that you can still run into. So I want to share with you what those critical failures are so you can avoid them. You will turn readers off your book if you don't fully understand hard and soft magic systems and get them right in your story. Get this wrong, and readers won't just be confused, they'll stop caring entirely. But I'm here to help you fix that. I'm revealing the critical failures fantasy authors make when creating hard and soft magic systems, mistakes that will lose your readers' interest. But if you understand exactly what these failures are and why they're sabotaging your story, I can guide you to success in your story's magic system. No matter what kind of magic system you create, it will either be a hard or soft system type. All magic systems can be plotted within a quadrant and fall under a combination of 2 of the 4 core types. And one of those types has to be on the horizontal axis, the spectrum from soft to hard magic. Hard magic systems have clearly defined rules, explicit limitations, and consequences. Think Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, where the magic follows specific rules and readers know exactly how it works. It's consistent, logical, and predictable enough that readers can anticipate outcomes based on the established mechanics. Soft magic systems, on the other hand, have fewer defined rules, relying on mystery and wonder rather than rigid guidelines. Think Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, where magic is more mysterious and not fully explained. Its boundaries aren't explicitly laid out, leaving readers with a sense of awe. Neither approach is inherently better, but if you don't know how to best implement these types for your novel, you'll damage readers' trust and destroy the emotional connection that makes them care about your story. Let's dive straight into the critical failures fantasy authors make when creating their magic systems, and exactly how these mistakes sabotage readers' connection to your story. The first major mistake is creating a hard magic system that's too rigid and too technical. You might have commendably intricate, detailed rules, but when magic gets so complicated it turns completely science or science textbook, readers lose that sense of wonder that drew them to fantasy in the first place. When the mechanics of your magic overshadow the emotional journey of your characters, readers stop connecting. They stop caring about why any of these rules matter. And really, if you get honest with yourself, do they matter for your story's arc? Do they help you convey what the story is really about? Your story loses its emotional heart because the magic isn't serving your story's deeper purpose. It's just distracting. Mistake number 2. You've created firm, clear rules, but then you break or bend them too much when your plot needs you to. You may have good reasons, like to try to show a character's transformative breakthrough, or maybe all that rigidity meant extra complexity that got too tangled for the needs of your story. So you opted to solve a tricky plot issue quickly with questionable magic. But here's the cost. Readers sense immediately when magic rules get thrown out the window. They feel tricked, manipulated, and frustrated. The magic suddenly feels arbitrary, not mysteriously intriguing, but confusing. And once readers lose trust in your rules, they'll struggle to trust the rest of your story. This next mistake is the opposite issue. Magic that's so loose and convenient, it starts solving more problems than it creates. Fantasy is so great because it heightens the real world themes and issues we want to explore, often in ways far more stark or clear than realistic genres. So while soft magic can occasionally work as characters want it to, and how unexpected it is can be quite humorous when it reverses rote reader expectations that way. Magic isn't normally an easy out. It's not effective for your story arc that way. It should complicate your characters' lives, adding layers of tension and conflict to push them toward their transformation. The magic's rules or lack of them are best when they serve that end goal. Some level of escapism with easy magic is fine, but that's not going to sustain a whole novel on its own. Readers will lose the stakes, which diminishes their ability to care. There's not enough to root for, hope for, fear for. There's no real reason to want to see a character struggle and change. But that's one of the subconscious desires readers want from a story, to vicariously experience that struggle and growth. With too soft magic, the story feels unearned, unrealistic, even by fantasy standards. Instead of drawing readers into your magical world, you're pushing them to apathy. Another critical mistake is having a soft magic system with no discernible limits. This is similar to the previous mistake, but it's a nuance I see more often. Magic might not actually solve everything in your story, but readers don't know why it couldn't. Even mysterious magic must have some boundaries and consistency. Otherwise, readers have no way to anticipate, guess, or care about what's possible. The story might all feel like a bunch of plot hole questions strung together, but technically, there's no way for readers to say that's actually the case. Without some clear or implied limits, the magic reads as random and unpredictable. Not intriguing, but frustrating. Readers can't invest emotionally in something they can't even grasp, so they disengage, losing interest and emotional attachment to your characters and their challenges. Perhaps most critically, authors who don't understand that magic systems live on a spectrum from soft to hard go to either extreme end. In doing so, they fail to recognize what's good about both sides. Ironically, I see this mistake most often with authors who are all in on their chosen system type. Mostly, it's with hard magic authors who get too caught up in creating the system to be absolutely plot hole proof. They want their stories to have such clear limits and intricate workings to make sure everything is explained soundly that they lose sight of what makes that technicality useful in their stories and simply what makes magic magical. But the same thing happens in the opposite way with soft magic authors. It's just not as obvious. Perhaps this is because so often for them, soft magic becomes the default because it was the rough draft or zero draft stand-in before they really focused on the system for magic, which is a totally valid way to go about writing while making sure the story arc is the real focus, by the way. They care so much about the story, which is great. But then they neglect to really consider what level of rules and limits and intricacies would best serve that story. Or by that point, they've created too many inconsistencies with how they need the magic to be used in their plots that they didn't know how to write themselves out of it when they tried to solidify the magic system in revision. It's this point that they, usually completely self-aware, justify their manuscript's magic system problems by insisting it's just a super soft and mysterious one. However, this means they're not making it work hard for their story's purposes. At both extremes, your readers miss out that best of both worlds feeling, where rules and mystery coexist, giving readers just enough clarity to invest emotionally, yet enough unpredictability to feel the sense of magical wonder, of something bigger and greater. Without this careful balance, your magic and your story loses depth, intrigue, and the chance to deliver that page-turning suspense readers love. The good news is that all these critical mistakes have one clear, actionable solution. The key to fixing magic system mistakes, whether your magic is hard or soft, is always including clear, story-driven limits and meaningful consequences. Limits are what make magic believable and compelling, and consequences are what make it meaningful. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. If you're using a hard magic system, definitely have your rules clearly defined, but also leave room for some mystery or unknown elements that readers can discover alongside your characters. The trick is to seed in these possibilities early enough so that when the surprising element does emerge, it feels exciting and earned and not random. If your story leans towards soft magic, Even subtle or hinted at rules can anchor your magic system. You don't need to spell it out fully for your readers, but you, the author, should know at least a little more behind the scenes about how your magic works so you can keep it showing up in a consistent enough way on the page. Even if your characters don't fully understand the magic, readers will still sense there's structure behind the mystery, allowing them to stay emotionally engaged. Now, your magic system is naturally going to fall closer to one side or the other of the spectrum, hard or soft, based on what your story needs most. Identify that first, but don't be afraid to blend in elements from the opposite end. That's often where the real magic happens for your readers. When you blend them effectively, you're giving readers the satisfaction of clear logic alongside the emotional thrill of surprise and wonder. You get to combine structure and clarity with the immersive mystery readers crave. It's the ultimate balance, logical enough to keep readers grounded, yet magical enough to delight and surprise. But I get it. I've worked with many talented authors, and I know firsthand how tricky finding this balance can be. It's easy to get stuck, second guess yourself, or lose perspective on your own magic system. You might be wondering right now if you've made your magic system clear enough, or if you've accidentally written your story into a corner with conflicting rules. I've had authors come to me after they've spent months, sometimes even years, pouring their hearts into drafts that simply didn't work. Often in large part because their magic system wasn't truly serving the story. Their manuscripts were technically finished, but felt forced in the part that was supposed to feel the most magical. This doesn't set up a story to become a published, marketable book, nor will it have as much impact or staying power for readers. But the authors I've seen succeed the fastest and achieve the most powerful results got direct, personalized feedback early in their writing process. They had the freedom to iterate on their draft and brainstorm with someone who understood both the storycraft and reader psychology. That's exactly why I created the Enchant Your Readers book coaching program. I designed this program specifically to help fantasy authors build magic systems and so much more into stories that hook readers deeply, deliver emotional payoff, and keep them coming back for an incredible immersive experience with every new book release. Here's exactly how Enchant Your Readers helps you achieve this. You'll get personalized, detailed feedback tailored specifically to your magic system and your story's unique arc, ensuring your magic always enhances your narrative rather than distracts from it. In our coaching sessions and private community, you'll be able to directly brainstorm with me to blend hard and soft magic effectively, finding the perfect balance between logical clarity and emotional intrigue. Unlike traditional editing, you're not limited to a single round of feedback. You'll have ongoing, unlimited reviews and guidance as you revise, helping you avoid costly, time-consuming mistakes. You won't waste months or even years on a manuscript that isn't working. You'll know what to do to make your book publishable. You'll have the step-by-step process so you can polish your manuscript with confidence, knowing your magic system and overall story are designed to create the kind of emotional connection and immersive experience that readers crave. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to what authors inside Enchant Your Readers have experienced working through their science fiction or fantasy stories with me.
A year and a half up to this point, I've worked on things like character backstory, wounds, misbeliefs, and deep outlining, but always more in an intuitive yet very unorganized approach. Let me tell you, putting structure to the process helped me out immensely.
Also, the scene spellbook has been an absolute dynamo with just making sure that each scene is on point and each one is adding something to the story. So it just adds so much more tension.
The nice thing is that, I mean, those books gave me a lot of structure, but it was your brain science that really clued me in to the emotion of it, that connects it. It just all seemed to fall into place. And I've been working on this stuff for decades, and it's just like, man, how come I'm not getting this? I mean, I'm not that dumb. I just thank you, because if I hadn't gotten in touch with you, I would have been in really big trouble. It's just, I still wouldn't be half as far where I am. And the story is so much more interesting to me now, and because of all the work that you and I have done, and even in this group and listening to everybody else, it's really helped. So it's been really great. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
If you're serious about writing and publishing fantasy novels readers will fall deeply in love with, don't guess your way through it, struggling with all the uncertainty and imposter syndrome alone. Let's make your magic and your entire story into a novel readers can't stop thinking about. Click the link in the description right now to join Enchant Your Readers and finally craft a magic system readers absolutely love to nerd out about.